everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Good Enough Gaming Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, Instagram, get more of us. You know,
click all the buttons.
All the buttons, click them. This week's episode is entitled You Show Knife, I Shogun. What do you get when you mix Terrell? What do you get when you mix Peaky Blinders with Game of Thrones and put it in the setting of 1600s Japan? Well, you would get the wildly received and compelling show that we are going to slowly convince you to watch. Shogun. No need to pirate this show. It is available on Disney Plus and Hulu through FX. You too can travel back in time with this live iteration of James Clavell's novel from 1975, actually. So sheath your katana, light up your lantern, lean back and relax as we discuss the global takeover from the European nations. As we discuss the hit show Shogun and the implications of the show's success could have on games in the future. So, I cannot believe how much I enjoyed the show.
I can't believe how much you enjoyed the show.
Yeah. There's a lot of reading.
You have to pay attention.
You actually have to pay attention. So,
okay, my theory is that the subtitles actually helped me stay engaged because I had to read it.
They force you to focus.
I couldn't skip it.
So counter suggestion, if the subtitle, yes, thank you, Trevor. I think Kyle needs to dive head first into anime and just go full subtitles.
Oh, 100%. My wife also needs to just turn subtitles on the TV all the time.
Yeah. Can Kyle get subtitles in real life?
I was going to say like a phone. Just an active he needs like Google glasses with subtitles.
Yeah, that's right.
Do those things still exist? Google?
I'm sure they do.
I imagine they do, yeah.
Okay. Oh, shit. Where was I going? I lost it on subtitles.
You paid attention. It got you hooked.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Kyle's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. I was going to say, actually, I think I might try Attack on Titan.
Yes.
Do it.
That's where to start.
Do it.
Yes.
It's so good.
But back on track here, we're talking Shogun, which is actually really compelling. And I feel like with how much we enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima, I feel like this was a nice sort of like bridge and connection into that. One of like the most iconic Japanese actors included in the series.
Hiroyuki Sanada. Sanada.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. That's the character name.
I'm
reading IMDb wrong.
Yeah. Also Scorpion in Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
He was in The Last Samurai. There's a lot less Tom Cruise in this one. If that's a
yes, that's holding anybody back.
Yeah. What one fun thing about this though is that they actually went with like the ancient dialect in Japanese when they recorded, so they all learned it, and
which is super cool.
It's so cool, and really, it's really awesome to see them try and do history accurately. I mean,
like
with
per se.
Always taking some liberations.
Yes,
for sure.
with some embellishment and that sort of thing. But overall,
kudos to Hiroyuki Sanada. Like on that point, Kyle, they approached him and he said that he would not do the show if the Japanese characters didn't speak Japanese. He was like, if this is going to be something that's, just like
some whiteified Japanese love
like simplified for the masses, and everybody for some reason has like an old English accent. He was like, I'm not going to do it.
It's just a bunch of like samurais walking around like, oi, governor, get over here.
Oi, bruv.
I always make fun of Assassin's Creed games for that because it's like it's a timepiece, and yet everybody speaks in a fucking English accent.
Old English.
What the fuck?
I think they did a great job. Like I know that's always a complaint about these movies. Is like white people love Japan. Like, and then they just like make these like, what was it? The Great Wall movie where it was like,
Oh my God.
Brad Pitt or whoever. It was just like, why whitewash it? Whereas like in this, they brought in all of these like awesome Japanese actors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then of course like
Japanese
the one white guy.
and
Yeah.
Cosmo Jarvis. It's just
Yeah, what a name, eh?
Yeah.
They filmed all of this in Vancouver.
Yeah. A lot of
yeah,
this was
man.
in British
This
Columbia.
in multiple spots in British Columbia.
Yeah.
which is-
Wow.
Yeah.
Fucking wild.
That's super
And
impressive.
it all
Represent
stemmed
Canada.
from-
Let's go.
It
Yeah.
all stemmed because they wanted to record it in Japan, but around the time was like COVID and stuff, so they couldn't. They had to find an
okay.
alternative means. So
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Japan was pretty locked down.
Yeah, so they
Very
weren't letting
locked
anyone in. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or out.
yeah,
For that matter.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was stuck in Japan. She's supposed to teach English for 1 year. She was there for 3 years.
oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Buckle
they
up.
they actually had like Japanese advisors for the show too, to make sure that it was actually like authentic to
That's rad.
time period and culture. But can we talk about the first episode and watching a dude get boiled alive?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude. What the hell?
Daryl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That was like one of those moments I was like, okay, this is one of those kind of shows where I was like, all right, like first it's a lot of like, it's one of those ones is pretty dialogue heavy, like early on in the show, but it's all leading up, right? Like you have to understand the political, sort of dilemma that's happening in there with the death of like the former like ruler, and everything. And so you get you're going to have dialogue up in the front of this, so you understand what the hell's going on. But
Yeah.
those little pieces of like, oh shit, like these guys do not fuck around.
No.
Like when they boiled that guy, I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
we're getting right into it.
Yeah.
And just the like the very, very staunch like commitment to honor and like honoring your family and your ruler and that sort of thing. Like the dude fucking ends his bloodline because he like yelled out in support of his.
Yeah, he threatens to, right? Like he's just like, I will kill myself. I will end my bloodline because I spoke out of turn. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Everyone's just
imagine
really,
that now.
everyone really just wants to off themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, I want out.
Yeah, like that is a very prevalent thing in the entire series is seppuku. And like there's probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 different scenes of seppuku throughout the series. Like
I feel like we could have had like a seppuku counter in the corner.
you almost could have. Yeah, honestly.
Just like a little head.
Yeah.
We got to have 2. You've got one that's like actually seppuku, or like 2 like threatening and or like offering seppuku.
Yeah.
About to do it, and then somebody steps in and is like, well, hold on a second.
Yeah, no,
But
it's okay.
It's interesting, like even in that, I think it's episode 2 when Kashigi is down, like they're getting transported. He's being transported to, oh God, what's the city?
Like the town.
Osaka.
Yeah, and so, but that Spanish guy gets thrown overboard in the storm, and so Kashigi has to like scale down the cliffside to go get him, and he's stuck in the wave, and then he just pulls out his sword, and he's about to end his own life in the water, and and I was like, oh, okay, like,
I was like,
all right,
like
I
this
thought he was going to
character.
use the sword to climb, and then
No, he's just like, I don't want to be a burden to them. I'm
nope,
just gonna.
I'm good.
Like, I'm gonna
And,
go
like,
on
he was-
my terms.
The rope just comes down in time, but then like John Blackmore is like in shock. What was that guy gonna do? Like he was just gonna kill himself. So he's asking the question, and everybody's just as surprised as like we are right now in this moment of like how prevalent that was. And so I think that's a really like good tie-in to just the culture at that time. And how any outsider would have felt like looking at that from an outside lens, being like, wait, he was just gonna like off himself because he
He was just like slight inconvenience.
and the Spanish guy's like, yeah, this is the way of life. Why you out? Like that's how he wants to go out. What's better? And
they want to go out on their terms and they want to have an honorable death, right?
Yeah.
I'd say it's all about having an honorable death and legacy to your family and your clan.
I also think early on they did a really good job with like Blackthorn, and then when he's going to the village, and they're essentially just yelling at each other in different languages, but they're saying the same thing, and they're like just pissing each other off, and just like it's just so funny because they're just creating this tension, but they're saying the exact same thing to each other.
And I love when English people insult someone because it's always like the most like the best insult when he's like yelling at the one guy when he's getting transported again. He's like, "Your hair looks like the back end of a donkey."
It's like the classic English.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that up, Daryl, because the funniest one that I've heard in the whole show, and I had to write it down so I didn't forget, is he calls somebody a milk dribbling cock smear. And I was like, that's going in the book. I'm keeping that.
Like British people, insults are next level every time. Like it's just the best.
So funny.
Playing up that sailor.
Yeah. I really appreciated too, like when you're talking about the dudes yelling at each other in different languages, that like the language barrier being this like major plot device too, and needing this translator that spoke both Portuguese and Japanese, and English, and like things getting misconstrued along the way.
Yeah.
That brings me to my first and probably few and only gripes with this fucking show.
Go.
So you have an Englishman that comes to Japan that has sort of been semi-colonized or partnered with Portugal.
Yeah.
And we have someone who translates. And I understand because the show, obviously you're reading a ton of Japanese and they're like, we don't want you reading all the time, but they just turn Portuguese. Spanish? They just turn Portuguese into English. And we're just supposed to kind of like follow along. They're like, well, this is the white man's language, but we're just going to use English because otherwise you'd literally be reading subtitles the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just like, why did we just like I understand why they did it, but just like making that swap, I was just like, this is so that kind of expected you to follow that. And you're like, what the fuck?
That's the reason I like games like Tekken and Street Fighter and things like that, because when the person is from a certain area, that's the language they talk in the game. And so like, I appreciate that in the series. I wouldn't have cared. I would have read it, but they should have been like, you're right. They should have been speaking Portuguese. Like,
and like just put it in brackets, Portuguese instead.
Yeah. Right.
Or like do two different fonts for Japanese versus Portuguese or something.
Yeah.
But that's where I was just like, oh, so we're just going to like, just kind of go down this road. Hey, like everything's just like all of Portuguese is just English now.
So
okay.
Sonata gets everybody to speak actual Japanese, but was like, but fuck Portuguese. Like,
We're not doing that. Yeah,
we couldn't be bothered.
Yeah, I think that in the grand scheme of things, there's such little amounts of English in the show that I think it was purely just
that was their olive branch to the audience to be like, here's something like for the Game of Thrones fans or whoever. Yeah, whoever just wants like a political drama, they're like, here, you don't have to read everything. Like here.
Yeah. But I honestly I agree with Kyle. I loved the fact that the language barrier plays such a large part in the narrative.
So it makes it so realistic. Like that's the reality of those times. Like,
well, and it's such a natural progression because you see Anjin, or I'm just going to call him Anjin for ease sake.
John Blackthorne.
Blackthorne. Yeah. So like you see Blackthorne can't speak anything. And he's like super disrespectful and he swears a lot in the first few episodes.
Yeah.
And then towards the last like 3 or 4 episodes, he's actually starting to learn their language and learn their gestures. And he's starting to greet people the way that they greet people. And like, it's just, it's like a beautiful chef's kiss of just... this is how it would work. This is people. This
is very much why you get a lot of the comparisons with like The Last Samurai, right? Like you're getting this guy that comes in, and then you're getting like he's just acclimating to the culture, and like just falling in love with it. Like same thing. Like there's a lot of that cultural bias as well when he comes in, and he hangs the chicken to like let it dry or rot, and then the guy has to kill himself because he like dishonored him. And like same thing, like learning about like bathing and how that's like such a huge cultural thing in Japan, but just a fucking English sailor, he's like, oh yeah, a bath a month is cool, right?
Even just like them addressing him like them as barbarian.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like seeing these white explorers. Exploiters
and explorers
yeah,
there you go. That works.
These white explorers as these like barbaric savages who like have no manners or culture or any sense of,
well, are they wrong?
No.
Well, that's like I love there was a scene between Lady Mariko and John. I believe it's with her where she asks about his homeland, and she's like, what is it like? What are the people like? What's the town or the village that you're from? And like she's expecting him to, kind of like rave about it, like, oh, it's an amazing place, and he goes, oh, it's a shithole. It's dirty. It smells. The people are rude, and like he has nothing positive to say about where he's from. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe that switch is starting to happen where he's realizing like, oh, maybe staying here isn't such a bad thing.
Yeah.
Just constant fear for his life is
yeah. How many assassination attempts did he go through?
I think like
the fire, the fire arrows in the forest was wild. Yeah. Like that was a good ambush.
Also, like when they're trying to just like walk out of the palace, and like there's a lot of like weird, like tense situations that go to bloodshed, and then it's just like, okay, it's done.
Back to normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like back to this like honorific code. And even her like fighting people off with like this giant, like, was it a spear or halberd?
Whatever those are called. I can't remember the name of them, but yeah.
Yeah.
Giant bladed weapon.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And then it's just like they realize that they're stuck and can't leave the city. And it's like, well, shit. I guess we're hostages again.
Playing the seppuku card.
Yeah.
You've triggered my trap card.
Oh, God. Yeah. This show definitely has, it definitely borrows a little bit from like Game of Thrones too, where it is very character heavy. And at times it can be a little bit difficult to follow, like, okay, what clans are we referring to? What lords are we referring to? And it's funny how it'll go from that, like, to, kind of what Daryl mentioned, very dialogue heavy in parts. And then on the flip side of that, you get the scene where they're testing the cannons in the field.
I was about to talk about that.
And the Lord's son just decides to fucking murder this dude.
Yeah.
And like the chain balls come in it and just like disintegrates a horse in half. And I'm like, what is happening right now?
The amount of like double and triple crosses that happen. Like that one like lower Japanese lord that like is working for both
Kashigi Yabushigi. Yeah. I'm gonna butcher every name I say tonight. That's fine.
But like him working for like trying to work all the angles as best he can.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And like like you said, that cannon scene.
That's when I was like, okay, this has got Game of Thrones vibes to me because like there's so many like moving pieces where like this guy's trying to align himself with whoever comes on top. Like I'm going to have all of my bases covered, and I'm basically going to decide who I'm going to align with based off of this battle or this battle or whatever, And I was like, okay, this is very much the same. But all of that is like the political spectrum of war, right? Like,
it's like Senior Chang switching teams in the people episode.
Well, it's no different than
so similar
to like Toranaga's cousin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right? Same thing where like they go to him for help and he's like, oh, actually I took your spot on the council. So like, fuck you.
I got a better deal before I got here.
He becomes like the biggest douche in the whole show. You're like, wow, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, Kashigi to me is the most tortured character in the show because, like, yes, he does flip flop back and forth a lot.
Oh, Kyle disagrees.
He just wants some land. He just wants to be better. Like, he just wants to be a lord, right? He just wants like some power.
Yeah, he wants to be seen for more than he is.
It's my birthday, man. I just want some cake. Okay, like.
I feel so bad for him because he, as much as he does flip flop, a lot of it is him purely just being taken advantage of. And like, just it's constantly pulling his strings and trying to make him do things. And like, you know, he's a fascinating character. Every time he was in a scene, I was like, I'm paying extra attention to this part because this guy's got my attention. I loved every part that he was in.
And then essentially the whole time he's got his like nephew there, who's essentially like his heir. Like, and he's like, it's pretty much just the whole like, do as I say, not as I do. Like, I'm just trying to make this better for you, but don't do what I'm about to do because this is gonna suck.
Yeah,
like even from the very first episode, it's so funny because he's like, I'm taking the ship. I'm gonna have the ship. I'm gonna take the cannons. I have the gold and the silver, and then the council comes in and is like, oh, you have all the stuff that was on here. We're taking it in the name of of the Lord, and he's like, okay. Cool. Yeah. I was going to give him that ship as a gift anyways. It was just a surprise.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, poor guy. Well, I guess that didn't work.
Yeah.
All right. So counterpoint to Kashigi.
Okay.
Lady Mariko.
Lady Mariko.
Yeah.
As the most tortured character.
Okay.
She was like, she watched her family die in like the whole uprising and everything. As her dad, father, assassin, whatnot. She wants to die. She's like, for her honor, for her family, and she is being ordered to stay alive.
Yeah. Denied. Yeah.
She continues like, just let me die. I don't want to be here. Instead, she's got this like dickhead husband who's
just the worst.
the worst, like toxic masculinity, like stand like with, let me shoot this arrow by my wife's face.
Right
like,
past your nose. Yeah.
It's fucking dick swinging contest. And I'm sorry, but
it's true.
And
you're not wrong though.
No, but like she finally, spoilers, no shit. But it takes 9 episodes, but she finally gets
she gets her wish.
She had like threatened to kill herself before, and they managed to
several times,
many times.
She was on the verge. But unfortunately, like, she didn't get to do it by her own hand. Instead it was a fucking cannon blast through a door.
but like
that episode was like,
she did at least do it in the way that she could, and like
she went out with a bang.
One, she saved Dale. Yikes.
She balls to the wall, baby.
Well, she was all over the wall after that. That's for sure.
To the window, to the wall.
Oh,
the pieces of Mariko fall.
Oh my god. Okay. I think we're gonna need a quick reset here.
Sorry, I do want to touch on that quick. Not so much in terms of the tortured characters, but like Mariko being part of this like master, like Sherlock Holmes level plan. Because then you also had like who's the older general, like the really old guy.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
Toranago's like best like.
Yeah,
uncle,
his right hand man, basically.
Right hand man, who essentially like they have a plan, like so fucking deep cut. Like they have a plan where this guy's like challenging him, kills himself in front of everybody to like prove a point.
Yeah,
but it ends up being part of the whole plan to get everyone like on board. It's just like just the layers. There's so many layers.
Oh,
Trevor is good.
The whole thing is nuts.
I love you.
Yeah,
but I'm not offing myself just to make a point.
That's cool. I'm okay with that. This is like
just nobody's asking you to.
Perfect.
Hopefully it never comes to that. I don't think my life's that important.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's committing seppuku in this.
It's just a podcast, Kyle. We're not trying to get views that bad.
That would
You won't believe what happened.
That'd be quite a live stream.
Seppuku, you won't believe what happened.
Okay, last thing
God.
on Lady Mariko. I just want to give kudos to the actress because I've never seen her in anything. But Anna Sawai,
She was awesome.
crushed it. She was so good in this show. Fun little tidbit. She's actually an ex J-pop singer, like a
right on.
Oh, really?
yeah, like she had a pretty big career in J-pop for a while, and then just decided that she didn't want to do that anymore. And yeah,
Well, acting's working for her. So
She was in
what a genre switch.
Daryl. She was in Fast and Furious 9.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know where.
I thought I recognized her.
Hey, there you go.
There you go.
That's cool.
Daryl's back in on the show.
Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to
I like the show.
give her some flowers because her character was great.
appreciate it. All right, so we're gonna take a bit of a reset here. We're gonna go to break. We're gonna go to segment so we can bounce back from that cannonball. This week, I believe it is the treasure trove. So Jordan, take us away.
Treasure trove.
Okay, this week on the Treasure Trove, for anybody that's listening to our podcast for the first time, I have been known in this group to play just about everything.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. So we've created a segment for all the random shit that I find along the way. And this game is not topical in the slightest to the episode today. But we are going to talk about Jusant. Weirdly enough, I stumbled across this game as an Instagram ad, and it kept hitting my screen for months leading up to release.
It worked.
And it worked.
Relentless pressure.
yeah.
We'll get to Jordan.
Yeah.
Eventually. So this launched day one on Game Pass. Another reason why Game Pass is pretty awesome. But this game is like Journey. If anybody's played that, like Journey's, kind of meditation, really nice soundtrack, relaxing and laid back. And then they've thrown in like a rock climbing game on top of it.
Oh, weird.
And essentially you play a little kid in a world that is in a drought. There's no water to be found. And apparently at the top of this mountain, there's either a spring or some type of item that'll return water back to the world.
Sandland.
I was just going to say, Sandland?
And so, you've got this cool little alien companion. He just looks like a little blob with feet. He's fucking adorable. And
It's the Disney card for sure on that one.
Yeah. And then, it's got the Zelda like stamina mechanic for climbing. So your left trigger and right trigger are your hand grips. And then you've got to track your stamina meter. You've got a climbing rope that you can stamp into the wall as you go. And the higher and higher up you go, it throws different mechanics at you. It makes the climbing sections harder. You have to watch your stamina meter more.
Of course.
But throughout all of this, it's got like a pastel colored art style. Like it's beautiful, really colorful and vibrant. But the soundtrack is phenomenal. And it's one of those games, like I think I mentioned in our group chat when I played it, not a single word of dialogue is spoken. And yet the emotional beats that hit at the end of the game with the little alien dude, I won't spoil it, but I'm like, what the fuck?
It's getting misty in here.
Yeah. Like, I wasn't ready for this. And I always appreciate games that can hit moments like that without any dialogue spoken. I think that's a really hard thing to do. So Yeah, if you're looking for kind of a cozy game, with really good music, check out Jusant. It's on Game Pass. I've seen it on Steam go on sale for like $15 a few times too. So it's not a super expensive game, and it's, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours of gameplay. So you can beat it in a weekend for sure.
Solid.
Yeah, check it out.
It fits into this like post-apocalyptic like desert exploration game. Like you said, like you've got Journey. I was watching the trailer. This kind of reminds me of PS Plus had Sable.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
I was just like,
Similar
I've got
kind
this,
of
like,
vibe.
these cool like desert exploration games.
Yeah. It was something it was never on my radar leading up to release. And then, the ads had the music playing, and it was the music that caught my attention. I was like, oh, that's really nice to listen to.
I mean, you are a big soundtrack guy too. So
It's true.
I am. I don't need to feel like a sweat playing Final Fantasy or Elden Ring all the time. I do enjoy some games where I could just like turn my brain off and just kind of coast through. So
cool.
Yeah. Check it out.
Awesome. Thank you for another week of the Treasure Trove. We appreciate you deep diving into random shit.
Jusant. Fucking betcha.
Jusant. So back to
Shogun.
Now the Shogun's already been renewed for another season.
Yes.
Which is wild. They weren't originally going to. They were going to leave it.
They were, but due to popularity and everything, they were asking for more.
If it's making money, let it keep going.
Let her eat.
My gripe is the spoilers again, folks. Like at this point, the last episode was not nearly as climactic as episode 9. I didn't enjoy it quite as much. I feel like it just sort of like left a lot hanging.
But isn't that the point of like your next
for
season?
Another season.
Yeah, it's still, there wasn't payoff. There wasn't like,
it's kind of a wrap up, right? They were kind of like, what happens now, right? Because you've got John Blackthorne. You're like, well, what happens to him? Did he leave? You've got like Toranaga, like, oh, he's the Shogun now, right? Like he did the thing he said he wasn't going to do because he was playing us the whole time.
Honestly, I feel like that happens in a lot of dramatic shows. Is the second last episode is always like the holy fuck emotional one. And then the last episode is like, okay, we've got 25 characters that we've been playing around with. Let's try and close some of these story arcs that we've opened up.
Yeah.
It's the Friends season 8 flashback episode where we look at all the great times we had along the way.
It's a bottle episode.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's not exclusive to this show, but I agree with Kyle though. I think it's a problem most of these shows have, and this one is like, it's good, but
yeah, I agree.
But yeah, episode 9 definitely is like that's a 10 out of 10 episode.
Easily, yeah. Right, Daryl?
Yep.
Daryl's on like episode 4 or 5.
I'm on 5, but
it's fine.
I already know lots of what happens. The internet has ruined a lot of things for me.
So yeah,
as it
does. So with the success of the show and just the focus on Japanese like lore and history, does it make you want to go back and play Ghost of Tsushima?
It makes me want to go back and play Rise of the Ronin, because this is almost the exact time period that game happens.
Okay.
Like there's pistols, and it talks about Western trade and all that stuff in the game. So like I just had Rise of the Ronin vibes throughout this whole thing.
Fair.
I think that the success of the show is going to lead more into the success of the future Ghost of Tsushima games.
Okay.
Like, I think that this has like the show I think came at a good time, and I don't know if Ghost of Tsushima or Rise of Ronin or any of these games had like any impact of like even just the interest of development before any of those products came out to like spark. They're like, oh, people are interested in this. Like maybe we should do a show about this. I don't have any of that has any impact on there, but I do think that they coincide with one another. Like Just to your point, Kyle, like, do you like, does this make me want to pick up Ghost of Tsushima again? I'm watching it, and that's all I can think about when I'm watching it, and watching some of the battle stuff is all I think about is that game. And then how excited I am to play the next one. And I think that that's like a good, again, early on in the episode, you said like, this is like that nice bridge.
Yeah.
And I think it's the exact same thing, you know, like this is a good bridge until we get Ghost of Tsushima 2 or Black Myth Wukong and just all of these other games that are kind of linked like to that side of the world.
Well, I kind of feel like that's why this show took off, because it not only appealed to like the hardcore Game of Thrones, like HBO watchers, but it also appealed to all the gamers.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of hit that sweet spot.
My parents watched the show, and I told them, I was like, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, Dad would probably like this.
Yeah, it's definitely got. This is definitely FX is like, hey, we're gonna do an HBO series, and we're gonna swear, and we're gonna like show someone getting boiled alive and getting their head cut off and putting it on a spike. Like we're gonna get into it in the way that I think in the past they couldn't, because it wasn't on. Yeah. You couldn't put that on TV, right? That was an HBO only thing.
This was the most expensive series FX has ever done.
Not shocked.
The costumes, the props, the like set design, all of that stuff is wildly
amazing.
All
like
the costumes were
extras.
Handmade. All the costumes were handmade, which is
the attention to detail in this whole show was phenomenal. I got a question for you guys though, because this came up when I was watching like episode 4 and 5. Do you think this show is like, how do you think this is going to affect Ghost of Tsushima's movie or TV series? Because they've talked about doing something there. Like, do you think it's going to influence that in any way? Even the success of it. Is it going to be more successful?
I just assume Hiroyuki Sanada is going to be in it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, off the bat.
He has to be,
him, or like you get some of the other people, like you get, I can't remember the guy who was the main guy in The Last Samurai. He's been in a ton of stuff too, right? If you're like, hey, we're doing a movie in Japan, you're like, okay, here's the top 3 people you need to put in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always like those go-to people.
I want the guy that voiced Jin Sakai to be Jin Sakai.
I thought they were saying that they were planning to do that.
He's already
the myth, myths.
Like he's already petitioned for it on Twitter. He's like, hey, I did it, guys. Like, I did I did the game already. I know how to do this character.
I want him to be the guy. Like that would be amazing.
It gives me hope though, right? This is the same thing as like with Fallout and talking about a Horizon series. Like it definitely feels like there's a bit of crossover there where they can kind of use either some of the sets or like just get an idea of like, hey, this worked. Like this is the thing that worked. Keep it true to the material, and it's gonna work.
I think certainly sets the bar for like what that series is going to have to do in order to get you to watch it and be involved.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, because like whenever I think of like Sony games being made into movies and stuff, it's like a lot of the time it's the wow factor, the Hollywood factor of like, let's just throw money and make it big and like explosive. But it's like, but it's like Tsushima doesn't necessarily need to be that way. It should be handcrafted and, a little bit slower paced, and like, it doesn't have to be this big Hollywood thing.
No.
So, and I think this show proves that, right? Like, I think in the long run, it should only help, whether it is a Tsushima movie or TV series. I don't know if that's ever been confirmed, but
also like even factoring in like Assassin's Creed Shadows, right? Like all this focus on like Japanese historical, historical
kind of fantasized lore, a little bit, but
people fucking love it. I love it.
I think it's just the wave we're riding right now, because it always comes in like. For years, it was like we're talking about nothing but Egypt, and then all of a sudden we're doing nothing but Greece, and now we're in this like
Gladiator 2 coming out this fall. Back to Rome, baby. Let's go. Back to
we had the zombies. We had the zombies era, like the mid 2000s.
Yeah, all of those things, like it comes in droves.
Yeah.
And I feel like right now it is like the it's that Far East, like Asian sort of centric movement right now, and I'm all about it because those cultures are super rich in history and super interesting, and we just really haven't had a lot of it.
No, because I would say coming out of Europe, you tend to get, especially like British stuff, you're going to get a lot of like old medieval stuff every 2 to 3 years. You know, it's kind of like the equivalent of like the Go America military movie. Hey, we need another Robin Hood. Like, you know, let's get Russell Crowe out here. Get Russell Crowe on a ship, you know, doing something. Yeah. But like now it's like, hey, there's other things, right? And same, like there's I can't remember the name of the movie. There's like been recent success of like Bollywood movies on Netflix. Like there's one I can't remember. It's like a super action movie, and people were like, "This is awesome."
When I think that is, you know, we shit on like streaming services for a lot of things, and there are a lot of problems with them, but that is one of the like gemstones of streaming is it opens up content to a whole different audience. Like Shogun hitting HBO back in the late 90s, early 2000s. There's no way that it would have been successful. It would have just flopped.
No. Timing is everything too.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
And like they did, like they started development for this in 2018. And they actually scrapped it and started again.
Wow. Is that just because of COVID or just?
No, because the original drafts, they were like, this isn't good enough.
Oh, wow.
They actually like started and rewrote it.
Kudos to them for doing that.
No doubt.
Yeah. And like, again, it was 5-6 years in the making and it paid off, right? Like they took their time, they did it right. And again, you know, it paid off for them. So hopefully they continue to take their time with it.
Well, you mentioned season 2.
That got approved like a week after the season ended. They're like, hey, everyone loves this. We're doing it again. Yeah.
And you mentioned a book. This was based off a book. Is it like a book series or is it a singular?
No, it's a novel.
It's just a singular called Shogun. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So read the book. I was like, oh, it sounds like a good book.
From 1975.
I'm curious what they're going to do story wise then if it's a singular novel. I mean, obviously, it's not like it's not very hard to pull history Japanese and lore. Yeah, like that's, you know.
I'm like, forgive me for my ignorance. Was Yasuke around that time or was that earlier?
I think that was a lot earlier.
Okay.
Don't quote me on years or any of that stuff.
Because I could for sure foresee something like that being included too.
Yeah.
Like as a prominent like racial figure, like someone that's completely different in Japanese history. I could see that being included too. Even just like a version of it or like an homage to Yasuke in a different way.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of directions that they can go. And a lot of these characters are, you know, based on, you know, somebody who was a real historical figure, but obviously they take some liberties with it to, you know, spruce it up for TV and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, give me more shows like this. And I appreciate the fact that it is a series and not a movie. Cause I don't know.
This has to be a series. This can't be
100%.
Yeah, there's no way you can deal with 5 different clans and all the lords and all the people in even a 3-hour movie. Like, there's no way to fit all of that.
This is definitely like the way a lot of longer stories should go. I mean, like I have my own gripes about specific franchises that decided to go movies instead of shows that would have been so much better. Gunslinger series.
Yeah, the Dark Tower.
Oh my god!
I mean, they butchered that anyways.
Oh,
show.
so
what they did to my boy.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But if so, just to bring it on home here, did you guys have any other major things you wanted to talk about with the series?
Yeah, so I've got 2 things. One is one is Blackthorn. the actor Cosmo Jarvis.
Jarvis, yep.
Yeah.
How is that not Tom Hardy 2.0?
100%.
Like, did anybody else get Tom Hardy vibes off of him?
Yeah.
It's like, is this his cousin?
Yeah, I had to Google it. I was like, they got to be related.
Not all British
Hardy.
people are the same, Jordan. That's so ignorant.
Mannerisms. Fuck off, Daryl.
Just that look. He just has that, like, just that look. Yeah.
Even the mannerisms and his voice and like the way he carried himself.
They're probably from the same area.
Yeah, there was just so much Tom Hardy in that. It kept distracting me. I was like, this is fucking wild. And then the second thing, this was probably the dumbest thing in the show for me. And I just laughed and I was like, okay, I hope there's nothing else like this in the show. But when Toranaga's son tries to kill the uncle,
slips and kills himself,
slips on the water and cracks his head on a rock and kills himself. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious?
But like that makes complete sense.
Yeah, that happens.
Well, it's kind of
he was a fucking idiot. He was useless.
It was so dumb.
Well, it was kind of like that fabled lesson of like, you're trying too hard. You're doing you're doing too much and you're trying to be bigger than you are. And he just like, and you failed. Right. And it's just,
yeah.
And like the most spectacularly stupid way possible.
Exactly.
I failed in the most spectacular way possible.
Yeah.
Fuck's sakes.
Yeah, I killed myself on a rock.
The opposite of that I loved was when they gave Blackthorn like his like wife. What's her name? Usami. When he's got like his like maiden wife person that he's like taking care of. And like just the whole honor system with that when the people come to the house and she's like got the guns and she just starts pointing them at people.
Yeah. That's awesome.
They're trying to take them from him.
Yeah. She's like, no, these belong here. Like, you can get off my property. It was like a classic, like, get off my lawn moment. And I was like, this is great. Yeah. Like,
Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that the show didn't use too much of the Western weaponry. No. Like, because then anytime that the pistol was used in combat, you were like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
You know, like it just
there's not a surplus of ammunition available or anything. Like they don't have, like they're not carrying that stuff around. So the use of it has to be a little bit more poignant.
Sorry, I just had a thought back to Toranaga's son. I think there's kind of like a funny, universe thing where he killed that guy very dishonorably with the cannon ambush.
Right. So this was karma.
And then he himself died dishonorably with that, like
trying to stab somebody in the back.
Yeah. Trying to,
yeah.
Yeah. So I think, there's a funny way of showing. Yeah. Karma.
I'm sure someone wrote, there's some sort of Japanese concept here that I can't remember from my time going through stuff like that, but he got his.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Street justice. That's street justice.
Street justice.
Japanese street justice.
Okay, so
scores.
Jordan, did you have any more points? Yeah, let's go to scores here. Jordan, what was your score for the series?
It's sitting at an 8 out of 10 for me. Really enjoyed it. It's got some pacing issues, and it can be hard to follow just all the characters that they incorporated.
If you look down at all, you miss the subtitles, you miss plot, you miss.
Yeah. Yep. But the attention to detail, the acting, just the story, like as you do follow it, all of that was knocked out of the park. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for me. Happy with it.
Trevor.
I think I'm with Jordan. Like I'd probably go like an 8.5. Like it's definitely worth the watch. Like it,
yes,
yeah.
Like the cinematography, like even that, right? Like just even watching it from that standpoint, like the sets and all the stuff that they did just to make it believable and realistic. Like fantastic job. They also did a great job with like any of the CG stuff when they're doing like the old school like cityscapes,
earthquake,
well, the earthquake,
the earthquake,
like stuff like that. Like there's stuff that they covered where they didn't go heavy on CG, but when they needed to, it was well done.
Yes.
And I think that definitely played a part where like same thing in Game of Thrones. There's times where you're like, ooh, that dragon's a little off.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I agree with Trevor. I'm like 8.5. I was at a 9, and then the last episode sort of like lost me a bit. So like 8.5, I think is reasonable. Daryl, being partway through it, how do you feel?
I think this is an 8 series. I think my love for story and like a strong narrative that pulls you in and makes you want to find out more. I think that this is one of those shows that does that really well. Like your Game of Thrones, like Peaky Blinders, and like lots of these other like sort of long going like feuds between different parties and things like that. It's interesting. And so you get pretty heavily invested where, but for me, honestly, I feel like these are 45-minute episodes, not 60. Like I do think that there's some overages on some of the conversation. They're just kind of unnecessary fluff. So that's my only gripe. I feel like this could be condensed slightly, and then that's about it. I think action wise, the scenes that are there are really good. I think that the kind of historical context and representation that they've put forward is really strong. So
yeah,
well said. I agree.
Awesome. Well, I think that just about wraps it up. Trevor's got a point.
We got through the entire episode and no one said the Japans. I just want to. I cannot believe that no one talked about the Japans. That's critical.
That is a key point. You're right.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Trevor. Appreciate it. So, once again, Shogun. It's on Disney Plus on the FX. Give it a watch. It's worth it. If my dad wants to watch it, it's probably pretty decent. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, rate us. Hopefully good. I hope. I think we're funny. But that lets us expand our horizons, get us to new people, and let us keep doing this because we want to keep doing this.
Yeah, come on.
Come on, people now.
Good enough.
Daryl's all about cutting short time here.
Wrap it up.
Like Daryl said, good enough.
Good enough.
Yeah, good enough.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for more content. We also invite you to write an email or join us on Discord to talk about anything from our episodes or something else you would like to discuss in the future. Please subscribe to the Good Enough Gaming Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. And remember, we might not be great, but we are good enough.